That was very funny. We're like, come on, Sean, you can do it. We know you can do it. All right. It appears that I have it. Now let me just check over there. And then, do you have a hard stop, by the way? I want to make sure that I'm respectful of your time.
We can chat as long as you like.
Okay. Well, we got like 6 hours of questions. No, I don't.
Perfect.
All right. It does say that we're live over there. Good, which is exactly what we want. So, everybody, welcome to a recording for the Stacky Benjamin Show. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy. This is a guy I feel like is an old friend of mine, Steve Kerber, over here. And Steve, how many have we done this? 3 years now that we've been involved with fire safety, fire prevention month, I think.
I think, yeah, three or four, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always fun. And I was surprised because when we first had Steve on, I was like, this is kind of money adjacent. And we got so much great feedback, which was great. So what we're going to do, guys, is two things. Number one is, if you are joining us on YouTube live, you can ask your question in the chat and we'll have our team relay it to Steve and I. So if you've got questions, great opportunity to ask the expert today. But before that, I'm going to do a quick interview that will live here on YouTube that Tina will cut and will live out here on YouTube. And also that will also play for the Stacking Benjamins audience. You'll hear it in a couple of weeks on Stacking Benjamin. So we'll have a 5 to 7 minute interview. And then after that, it's going to be all you guys asking questions. Whatever you want to know about fire safety, bring it. I'm sure there's no question you can ask that Steve probably hasn't gotten before. So maybe we try to do that. Maybe that's what we try to do. We see if we can stump the expert today. I don't know. All right. I think that's all we got. I'm going to hit record and we'll do this. Well, it's Fire Prevention Month, and you know what that means, people. We've talked a lot about disaster planning here lately on the show. We've talked a lot also about insurance, but you know the best insurance is that you're prepared, which is why we love having this next gentleman on from the Fire Safety Research Institute, part of UL. Mr. Steve Kerber is here with us. How are you, man?
Doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I want to start off this year with one of your videos, because you guys have made some very compelling videos. And I think instead of me asking some questions, well, I'll get to the questions, but let's listen in to this piece. This is, well, you'll hear.
That is insane.
In the event of a fire, who here thinks that you're safer sleeping with the doors open?
I keep them open because I was a mom for so long.
My kid's room is 2 doors down from mine.
Always open.
I'm not all that confident they would stop anything anyway.
I'm hoping you could hear that, Steve. Could you hear that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, at the beginning, because this is audio only, and even for the people that are here with us live on Fireside or YouTube watching, I could only play the audio for you. When the person asked, how many of you think that you should sleep with the door open? Everybody raised their hand. Every single person, Steve, raised their hand. I believe that. I'm assuming that doesn't surprise you.
No, I mean, nobody thinks a fire is going to happen to them. And certainly nobody's thinking about what a door means to their fire safety. So we've been on a mission to try and kind of change that.
What is the, when you hear these statistics, or you know all the statistics about a door, how much time does a door buy us in the event of a fire?
Vital time. I mean, it depends on the type of door. It depends on how close the fire is to where the door is. But I mean, it could be minutes, tens of minutes in an event of a fire. And I mean, really, the comparison is if that's wide open and you're connected to where the fire is, all that smoke and heat is coming right at you. So obviously putting something between you and that fire is going to buy you time.
Boy, and in this video too, which we'll link to on our show notes at Stacking Benjamins, that fire is moving pretty quick. And often by the time it gets to your room and the kids' rooms, this thing's already got a lot of heat behind it.
It's the biggest misconception that people have about fires. They think, and it's not negligent, right? I think people are indifferent about fire. Like they think that's somebody else's problem. They think that's going to happen to somebody else. It's not going to happen to me. And when you have that attitude and that complacency, then you don't think about it. You don't plan ahead. And I think people think they can figure it out in the moment. And with as fast as fire is today, because of what we put in our homes, the time is not there to figure it out in the moment. And that's what we keep seeing over and over and over again.
Well, this is the frustrating thing, Steve, the number of years that you've been with us talking about Fire Prevention Month, and yet the fatalities are going up. And we've talked about how the technology's improved. There's so many resources out there now, and yet fatalities are up.
Yeah, there's statistics everywhere. But I mean, so listen to this, ready? You would think that in America, if we had a 30% increase in fire deaths over the last 10 years, that someone would talk about it. But the reality is, I mean, 30% increase in the last 10 years. I mean, so we did great from like 1980 to like 2010. The number of fatalities was coming down. The number of fires was coming down. There was a lot more smoke alarms being installed. And I think that limited the amount of times the fire department was needed and stuff like that. The last 10 years has been nothing but a steady incline in the wrong direction.
Some of these statistics and part of why people like you being on, Steve, is that we all went through fire safety drills in school, right? But one thing that you always remind us is we never do that at home. So talk to me about fire safety drills at home and really how we do that and what some of the important things are to remember.
Absolutely. So one of the most important things you can do, and I think we kind of hit kids in elementary school. And we're like, hey, get low and go and stop, drop, and roll and all these other messages. But the reality is, how do we make that real and how do we make that actionable for adults? And what we've kind of started to do lately is we kind of call it, you need a plan A, B, and C. So your plan A is, let's say you're sleeping in your bedroom. Smoke alarm goes off. You've got that bedroom door closed. You go to that door. You open that door. Hopefully nothing really big is going on. You got a little bit of light smoke at the ceiling. Maybe a room several rooms away had something happen, small fire, whatever the case is. You make your way to your main exit. People typically want to leave by their front door. It's the door you're most familiar with. So you tell everybody in your family, go out through the front door. We're going to meet at the mailbox, get a head count, and call the fire department and ask for help. That's plan A. Plan B is you open that bedroom door and you're met with smoke. So what we're telling people is if you can't see your exit, if you can't look to the door that you're going to go out and know that you can make it to it, then plan B is okay, or skip plan A. Like if you can't get to that door, now plan B comes into play. Get to the window. And hopefully you can get out that window. Maybe you can get out on, if it's one floor, you can get out onto the ground. If it's the second floor, you can get out onto like a roof. But if you can't,
this is, by the way, Steve, I never realized what a problem smoke inhalation is, and how many of these people, the reason they passed away is because of not the fire itself, but the smoke inhalation before it.
Smoke is the number one killer. And I mean, with all the things that we're burning today, if you've ever had anything that's plastic or foam light on fire, it's nothing but thick black smoke. It's not like what we're used to at a campfire where you've got the white wispy smoke and it's like, oh, it's burning my eyes a little bit. I'm going to move out of the way. House fire smoke is not that way. So if you get met with that smoke, you got to close the door. You got to get to the window. And ultimately your plan C is I can't get out the window. I got to isolate myself. So now you get that door shut, say there's some smoke coming around the door. You can stuff some towels around the door or whatever, get to the window, call 911, let that fire department know exactly where you are. And this is really important for like apartment buildings and things like that. I mean, you're not going to jump out a third, fourth, fifth floor window, but you can get those doors shut far away from the fire as possible, call 911, get help coming your way.
I want to ask you last about technology for people that have missed this the last several years. A lot of people using outdated stuff, Steve. I know you've told us that before. Tell us about some of the innovation in fire safety.
Yeah, smoke alarms these days are much better than they used to be. They're using multiple sensors today where they can really begin to tell the difference between shower steam and bad cooking and stuff like that. And they're actually able to tell you that, hey, you've got a legitimate fire. So a lot of the new alarms have, we call them resistant to nuisance cooking alarms. So it's like they're not going to go off when you burn toast or broil hamburgers wrong or whatever the case is. There are also a bunch of smart smoke alarms that you can hook up to your phones. You can see the battery life. You can see what's going on. So they've come a long way. So you want to get some of those new alarms. And a lot of people don't realize those alarms expired in 10 years. Most people I know, they got the alarms that came with their house.
Right.
And
right.
never even thought about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that surprised me the first time that you told me. And we immediately, by the way, at our house, Steve, had to replace 3 smoke alarms immediately because of the fact that I had no idea and my spouse had no idea either. Let's go to some of your questions, guys. If you've got questions for Steve, if you're here on Fireside, you can ask them of him. If you are at YouTube, please put those in the comments, and we'll see if our team can get those over to us. Unfortunately, I can't see every single question, but we got our friend Chris here, who also makes a great show on Fireside. Chris, you got a question for Steve on fire safety, man?
Oh, yes, indeed. Thank you so much. My name is Chris Rossetti. I'm in San Francisco. Good morning from a beautiful sunny day for some reason.
Steve, by the way, Chris, before you ask your question, Chris gives me voice envy, Steve, just so you know. I say this every time I talk to him. I'm like, crap, that guy's got an amazing voice.
Yeah, immediately, I was like, I want to listen to this guy's question.
I know, right? All right. Sorry, Chris. Just had to obsess again.
That's okay. I was first of all, quick comment. I remember when my kids were coming up, there was a very popular fire safety video that we were showing in schools. It was a VHS with Gilbert Godfrey as the voice of the fire detector, the smoke detector. And the song was "Be Cool About Fire Safety." I'll never forget that one.
Nice. Yeah. Steve, do you remember that video?
That's before my time. I
was going to say, Steve might be a little young for that one.
Nice.
I know who Gilbert Gottfried is, but I haven't heard that song. I mean, historically, as you go back, there's all kinds of interesting tactics that have been done using famous people. Sometimes it's because they had a fire in their house, so they kind of feel compelled to try to do something and stuff like that. Because typically, I mean, if we were to call somebody that's as famous as Joe, or maybe a little more famous, they'd laugh at
like
us.
Chris.
They'd be like, yeah, it's going to be like $5 million if you'd like us to do a spot. Talk to my agent.
Also, recently I watched a movie with an actor called Mr. Bean. I don't know if you know him, the Mr. Bean character.
Sure, yeah.
And in this movie, this is really funny, but in this movie, he's cooking and he's not paying attention. So he lays the recipe book on the back burner on the gas stove, and it ignites on fire, and he's not paying attention. I'm watching this movie howling, telling my wife, this is ridiculous. I can't stand this movie. Nobody is that stupid. Fast forward to one day later, I'm cooking on my gas stove. I lay a Tupperware lid on a burner that's on, and I'm smelling smoke, and I'm going, I can't believe this. So I want everyone to understand that everything you've said today is very valuable, even for people who think they're smart.
I appreciate it, Chris. And we often joke that the 3 main causes of fire are men, women, and children. Because no matter what, people get involved. And, I mean, stuff happens. I mean, you didn't intend to light your kitchen on fire, but sometimes it happens. And luckily you were there to do something about it, probably turn the burner off. Otherwise, it's not hard for the lid to go to the paper towels, to go to the towels, to go to the cabinets, and then you've got a kitchen fire.
Yes, and I've had a kitchen fire before. I once tried cooking with oil for the first time, filled a pot with oil, turned it on high, went and took a nap. That's how dumb I used to be, and had a kitchen fire. Let me just leave you with this last invitation, if I may. You don't mind?
Bring it, man.
And remember, only you can prevent forest fires. Thank you from Smokey the Bear.
Thanks a ton, Chris. Listen to the antidepressant of the day that Chris has a great show with. He's awesome, Steve. That's fabulous.
That's great. No, I want to listen to Chris now. I mean, that is.
All right. Questions from other people in the basement Facebook group. I actually, I know we had one earlier that I was going to ask you. You mentioned smoke alarms. Sarah, who's actually having a birthday today as we record this. Happy birthday, Sarah. I actually asked her, Steve, if she's asking about fire extinguishers because she was wondering about blowing out candles later, if maybe she's having which I guess it's not nice talking about women in age, but
yeah, she's not old enough to have that many candles. So yeah,
that's absolutely Sarah. But do fire extinguishers expire?
It's a tough question. Not necessarily. It depends on the type of extinguisher that you have and what it's used for. The general kind of guidance for home fire extinguishers is typically like 10 years. It should have an expiration date on the placard on the canister of the extinguisher itself. So definitely look for that. The fire extinguishers that you see in office buildings or where you work and stuff like that, those usually have a little gauge on it that's got a needle that should be in the green. So if you see one where the needle's not in the green, that needs to be serviced. And usually those need to be serviced. I mean, they need to be checked monthly, I think serviced annually. And then there's extra testing that needs to be done to determine whether it is still good or needs to be thrown out. But typically for the ones you have in your house, 10 years is a good rule of thumb.
Dylan, who I know is an architect, by the way, Dylan's been in our community for a long time. He asked a question about automated fire suppression. What are your thoughts on automated fire suppression by stoves and dryers within homes? Is this something people should do when they plan out their new home?
Absolutely. So, I mean, really, if you look at what's the answer for the future for us to get control of this fire problem? Because everything we do in our houses goes against fire safety. What can we do to kind of level the playing field? Residential fire sprinklers is the answer. So I've got them in my home. There's a couple states in the country that require it for new homes. That's Maryland and California. A lot of other states, you should be asking for it. To kind of break this down for people, it's a fire goes from small flame to whole room on fire, so 1,000 degrees plus in a room, in 3 minutes or less. The average response time of the fire department in the United States is 6 minutes or more. So you do the math. You have entire rooms on fire before the fire department can even get there. So we've gotten to a place where fires grow faster than the manual suppression that the fire department's going to bring. Now, the fire department they're not going to stop the fire before it gets to a room on fire typically. But if you get a door between you and the fire, they're going to get there and they're going to save you. And they're going to do everything they can along those lines, and they're going to keep it from spreading even further. But the reality is fires can get deadly before the fire department can get there. So the only way for us to get ahead of it is automatic suppression. So definitely, without a doubt, recommend residential sprinklers if it's an option for you.
Yeah, Dylan, even in our basement Facebook group, links to places you can even you can get stuff on Amazon right now. On that note, Tina on our team asks, back to smoke detectors, thoughts on battery versus hardwire. I would guess they both have their downsides.
Yeah, I mean, it's just different options where typically hardwired is if you buy a house, a lot of codes these days require hardwired. So what hardwired is essentially you've got a box on your ceiling where every smoke alarm goes, and there's wires to it just like any other outlet that you have in your house. So that smoke alarm is going to have power all the time. And then the only reason it needs the battery is if your power goes out. So those last a long time. You don't have to worry about replacing those batteries as often. And then you've got the battery powered ones, which now come in two different kinds. You've got the traditional kind of 9-volt battery or AA battery alarms, where that's where we get our change your clock, change your battery guidance that's out there. We've found out over time that the alarm always chirps at low battery at like 2:00 in the morning. Which pisses people off. Yeah, they take it off the ceiling, they put it in a drawer, and maybe it doesn't go back up. So they've started to make what we're calling sealed alarms. So now you have alarms that have a 10-year battery in it. It's got a lithium ion battery in it. So you don't have to change the battery. You just have to let the alarm live its life. And then once it's reached its expiration date, it gives you a different chirp. And then you got to throw it away, get a new one.
Fabulous. Much better. Because then, yeah, love that. Last question I have is from Carrie. Carrie says, how concerning is old wiring in a house? Apparently she just moved into an older house. What are the signs that it could be dangerous, cause a fire within the walls?
That's a great question. I mean, if you don't have like really old wiring, the kind of knob and tube wiring that was really popular a century ago, that has been known to be an issue. Typically that stuff gets replaced and people put new wiring and a new panel in. Otherwise, I mean, if you're worried about it, I would get a licensed electrician out, have them kind of size up your system. There's sensors today that they sell that can be connected to a panel to let you know whether there's any anomalies in the system, which is kind of another neat new technology that if there's resistance issues or potential short circuits anywhere in the system, that'll let you know that you've got an issue. And I think those things are relatively cheap. So you might want to kind of look that up and it'll give you a peace of mind for sure.
Laura from your team sent us a bunch of great resources. We're going to link to those in our newsletter, the 201, also in the show notes. We'll show this video, but I know as of like 15 minutes before we recorded this, she sent me a brand new video you guys have out. So you've been working hard. Where do people go if they want to skip my show notes and go right to the source? Where would you send them, Steve?
We definitely send them to closeyourdoor.org. That's where you're going to find, I mean, we wanted to put some new videos out this year to show people what it's actually like to be in a fire. So we kind of use some experimental footage and some 3D models and kind of put you in the house so you can see what it would look like if you were to find yourself in that situation.
It is, even this, the video that we just referenced, just so disturbing. A lot of things we think we know about fire, we don't know as much as we think we do. Steve Kerber, thanks for hanging out with us and for keeping our Stacker family safe again this year. Good seeing you, my friend.
Much appreciated. Thanks for keeping us fire safe with your messages.
And we did it, everybody. It's a wrap. Steve, thank you so much, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I like how this app, they let you clap too. That's great. I love that.
Yeah. You don't want to talk over the clapping. You got to like let the clapping run its
I know, but I think you got a standing ovation, brother. So